Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling a massive challenge for association and nonprofit executives. If you're leading an organization right now, you know exactly how intense the pressure has become. Member expectations are rising every single year, your events are under more scrutiny than ever before, and your board, well, they want better, faster data. But let's be honest, our traditional tools are letting us down. So today, we're looking at a new approach to capturing intelligence, specifically through the lens of a platform called DoTell. And let's get the pronunciation out of the way early. It's DoTell, as in helping organizations listen more intelligently to what members and attendees are actually telling them. Here is our roadmap for this briefing. We're going to cover the feedback timing crisis, the shift toward instant listening, how to evaluate if your executive team is truly ready for this, the operational risks of real-time data, and finally, why your specific operational context matters way more than the software itself. All right, let's jump straight into part one, the feedback timing crisis, and exactly why traditional surveys are just arriving way too late. This timeline is going to look painfully familiar to anyone running association events. Think about it. The event wraps up, a couple of days go by, and an email survey finally goes out. Over the next 3 weeks, responses kind of just trickle in, and then maybe 4 months later, your staff actually sits down to review the data. By the time you realize a breakout session completely failed or a keynote absolutely nailed it, the moment has entirely passed. The data is historically interesting, sure, but it is operationally useless. You literally cannot fix a broken experience 3 months after everyone has flown home. The attendee has already formed their opinion, and your window for any sort of service recovery is totally lost. Which brings us to section 2, a shift in listening. We're talking about moving away from those delayed surveys and towards instant intelligence. It is so critical that we frame this correctly right off the bat. If you compare a tool like DoTell to something like SurveyMonkey, you are missing the point entirely. This fits into a developing, much more advanced software category known as real-time feedback intelligence platforms. We're looking at a combination of immediate delivery via SMS, richer input options like voice, and AI-driven sentiment analysis. This isn't about pretty survey design. It's about a massive shift in feedback velocity. And in the association space, velocity equals relevance. Just look at how this technology compresses that agonizing timeline we talked about earlier. A session ends, and literally within minutes, an SMS is sent out. Because it's frictionless, members actually respond right then and there. Almost instantly, AI surfaces the underlying sentiment. Think about what that means. Your staff is looking at actionable insight while the event experience is still happening. You can step in to recover a failing service right there on the spot. Or, equally important, if you identify a highly successful breakout session, you can immediately notify attendees that you're hosting a repeat session. It's a total game changer. And the performance gap between these channels, it's honestly staggering. Typical email open rates hover around 20 to 30%, with actual response rates stuck down in the single digits. Conversely, SMS achieves near universal visibility, and response rates jump all the way up to 45 to 55%. When you shift from an inbox that members habitually ignore to a text message they read instantly, it completely changes the volume and the reliability of your intelligence. Now, SMS is just the delivery channel. The way people input their feedback is just as vital. It turns out people actually prefer voice input when they're on the go at a busy event. They end up leaving longer, much more candid responses than they would ever bother to type out on a tiny screen. Obviously, stretched association teams couldn't possibly listen to hundreds of individual voice notes, but that's where the AI steps in. AI analysis scales and summarizes those core themes instantly, making deep qualitative insight immediately usable for your leadership, your event coordinators, and your membership staff. Okay, moving on to section 3, evaluating executive readiness. Can your organization actually handle these real-time signals? Because look, this is not just about buying software. Faster collection means absolutely nothing if your association isn't structured to respond to it. As an executive, you have to ask yourself a tough question. Who on your team actually owns the feedback workflow? If an alert fires at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday indicating that a major sponsor activation is failing, what happens next? Does your staff actually have the capacity to act? Or will this incredibly fast AI-powered tool just become another dataset collecting dust on a dashboard while your members feel ignored? That leads us directly into section 4, the risks of real time and the very real danger of solving only half the problem. We need to be totally candid about the implementation risks here. First off, collecting more feedback without acting on it just creates deep member frustration. Second, treating AI sentiment analysis as perfect, absolute truth rather than a directional guide is a strategic mistake. Third, and this is huge, Asking for real-time feedback creates an expectation of a real-time response, which you might not be staffed for. The reality is this. DoTell can help an association hear more quickly, but hearing faster only matters if the organization is prepared to respond better. Mistaking more data for better decisions is a trap you want to avoid. Looking at the product roadmap shows exactly where this entire software category is heading. Right now, the focus is on the core product functionality, SMS delivery, sentiment analysis, urgency detection, but the long-term ambition, phase 4 down there at the bottom, is full orchestration. We're talking AMS and CRM integration, signal routing, and predictive engagement. SMS is really just the entry point to a much deeper data strategy. Imagine a world where member feedback directly triggers an automated engagement pathway inside your CRM. That is where real-time intelligence is ultimately headed. So, where does this actually fit into your technology ecosystem? Let's make this crystal clear. DoTell does not replace your AMS. Your association management system remains your central system of record, period. A platform like DoTell sits alongside it as a feedback signal layer. What it really does is expose whether your association has been operating on delayed or incomplete signals. Most organizations discover that their real issue isn't feedback collection at all, it's feedback intelligence and how they utilize it across the enterprise. And that brings us to our final section, context over software, and why we need to preserve the advisory gap. As you evaluate these kinds of platforms, there is a quote from the SmartThoughts Analyst Review that absolutely hits the nail on the head. It says, AI can summarize what DoTell does. It cannot determine whether DoTell fits your association's operating model, member experience strategy, or technology ecosystem. A generic feature summary simply won't tell you if your team is culturally ready for real-time intelligence. Making that call requires deep context, governance, and independent operational judgment. If your association is evaluating feedback tools, event intelligence platforms, AMS systems, or any AI-enabled member engagement technology, SmartThoughts helps association and nonprofit executives make those exact decisions with independent, vendor-neutral guidance. You can grab the SmartThoughts AMS Selection Toolkit by visiting www.smartthoughts.net/AMS-selection-toolkit, or just call them directly at 817-523-9801. I want to leave you with this final critical thought. Are you currently struggling with a technology problem or an operational listening problem? Because at the end of the day, any tool you buy will only ever be as effective as your organization's readiness to hear it. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.